I want to talk to you about one of the biggest things I wish I knew before starting a sacred account. That's what we got this week on Fetta Facts. Hey, welcome back to Fetta Facts. Jerry Fetta here, CEO and founder of Wealth Dynamics. As I mentioned, I want to talk to you today about one of the things I really wish I knew before starting a sacred account. And this was something I learned the hard way. Fetta Facts, the purpose of these is to give you the facts about finances. All facts, no opinions, from someone that's actually doing this stuff. Not an influencer, not a guru. I'm actually the anti-guru, okay? But I'm actually using this. I've been using life insurance to build wealth since my mid to early 20s. I've been in financial services and helping clients across the US, even in Canada, sometimes internationally, since I was 18 years old. I'm turning 32 next week, so it's been quite some time. Look what just arrived. I just got my copy of the Blueprint to Financial Freedom. Hey, enjoy the rest of the content. I don't want to interrupt you too long, but if you go to jerryfetta.com/B2F promo or click the link in the description, you can get your copy now. But what I want to share with you is one of the top things I wish I knew, okay? So let me set the scene, right? You hear about the sacred account. You hear about the infinite banking concept, and you're like, that sounds amazing, right? I want to do that. The banks are doing it. The wealthy are doing it. And you get past the point of, but Dave Ramsey said not, or Suze Orman said that they're not supposed to buy whole life insurance, or I heard life insurance is a scam. You get past all that because you see a correct illustration. You know, illustration meaning the actual report showing the numbers, and you're like, wow, this looks really good. This actually is incredible, and I can see how it works. That's what I was doing, right? I got to that point, and I was hooked. I was like, okay, good. I'm going to start a policy. So I was the agent, right? I learned about it. I got contracted. I got trained to be able to design these, and I sold one to myself. I became my own agent. Now, as my own agent, there's some cool things I could do, right? You're your own agent. You're like, I'm the guy. I can figure out what I want. You know, I don't have to worry about someone taking advantage of me because I'm the one doing it all. The downside is I didn't have any knowledge beyond the knowledge I already possessed. Okay, so I went into it and I started to figure out pretty quickly that the dividend wasn't actually what I was earning, right? So I did my very first illustration. It was with a company that no longer actually does sacred accounts. And I'm glad I didn't go with them. They did what's called demutualizing. So a life insurance company that offers sacred accounts, they're a mutual company. They treat their policyholders as shareholders. And there was a very large one, been around for a long time. Their names are all over sports arenas across the US. They have Snoopy in their commercials. Okay, I won't go any further on that, but they demutualized. Okay, meaning that they basically got rid of their mutual basis and turned into a stock company. They become publicly traded. So the dividends for being a mutual policyholder all of a sudden changed, right? Everything is now different because it's a stock company, not a mutual company. So I almost actually pulled the trigger on one of those because I didn't know any better. Luckily, I didn't. If I had, I would have been really screwed with my policy. Okay. Now the other thing is, I took the illustration and I use a present value calculator, and I use a compounding annual growth rate calculator, and I looked at what am I putting in, what am I going to get at the end, how many years is that, and I noticed that my annual rate of return on average was closer to like 3 to 5%, right? And immediately it was like a red flag, okay? Because I want to draw this out. Check this out so you can see why this was a red flag. So I was told, my policy is going to earn a dividend of 6%, right? And that my loan interest, when I borrow, was going to be 5%. So I looked at that and I was like, no brainer, right? I put money in, it's growing at 6, and I'm only paying 5. I'm being paid 1% to borrow my own money. That's pretty cool, okay? However, when I looked at the actual illustration and I began to study it, I realized that this was a gross number. Gross meaning before fees and costs, and it's the reported number. Just like with a company, it might make $10 million, but what's the profit? Right? The phrase is revenue is vanity, profit is sanity. So this is like the revenue, it's vanity. Cool, I've got a 6% dividend, that's awesome. What's my actual profit? What am I netting on this thing? Okay, so what I found out is that my net was closer to 3 to 5% net. Okay, so immediately I'm concerned. I'm like, wait, so I might only earn 3 to 5 and it's going to cost me 5% to borrow, I'm either going backwards or going nowhere. It's if I make 5 and I spend 5, that doesn't help me at all, right? And if I make 3 and I spend 5, I actually lost money on this loan. I'm paying 2%. So if I can get a cheaper interest rate on a loan from a bank at 2%, why would I do my sacred account instead? Okay. What I realized was that this 5% is also gross. That is your gross interest rate. Now, there are registered investment advisors I have recently had interactions with that don't understand this, what I'm about to show you. Okay, so if you learn about this today, you now know more than they do. Okay, gross means you will pay 5% if you take a loan out and you never pay it back. So let's say I take out $100,000 on a loan. Okay, my 100,000 will still grow at 3 to 5%. And if I never pay my loan back, I will pay 5%, right? So that means that on average, let's say just for numbers, on average, I'm going to make about $4,000 a year on that 100, whether I pay it back or not. That's my net. But my interest cost, if I never pay my loan, my interest cost is going to be $5,000 if I'm paying 5% interest, isn't it? So how do we reconcile this? And so what I realized was that a life insurance policy is what's called a simple interest line of credit. What that means is the interest is calculated on an average daily basis for the month. Whatever you've got outstanding on your loan that day, you have a day's worth of interest that's going to be charged on that amount. So if I've got $100,000 and I never pay it back, yeah, I'm going to always pay 5% daily for my daily average, 5% total, $5,000 for the year on my 100,000. However, if I'm paying my loan back, because this is called being an honest banker, you would never take a loan against a sacred account to practice the infinite banking concept if you are not going to get a repayment on your loan. A bank would never loan money to someone that's not going to repay it. Therefore, if you're loaning the money to yourself, you should always repay it. Otherwise, you are not a bank. I don't know what you are. You're more like a government handout agency, right? This is not called become your own government handout. This is called becoming your own banker, isn't it? So let's check this out. I want to give you some reality on the numbers here. Okay, so what I developed is I started actually using a line of credit calculator so I could see what is my net cost of interest. Okay, so let's check this out. Loan amount, let's say it's going to be 100,000. Okay, let's say my starting interest rate is 5%. And let's say that I'm going to pay, $2,000 a month on this 100,000, or let's even make it lower. Let's say I'm going to invest the 100,000, I'm going to make 12% on it. So let's say I'm going to pay $1,000 a month back on this. Okay, so down here on my payment, I'm going to make $1,000 a month payment. Copy that, boom. There's my $1,000 a month. So I borrowed 100 right here, as you can see, and I'm making $1,000 a month worth of payments. Okay, so check this out. This is my outstanding balance. Each time I'm paying that $1,000 a month, you can see the balance is reducing, right? Total owed is going down. So when I get down here to the bottom, total owed, I'm going to get rid of the balloon payment there. When I get down here to the bottom, total owed, you can see at month 60, I've paid my loan down to $60,361. Okay. Now check this out. Not only am I paying down my balance, but because the balance goes down, the interest goes down as well. You can see each and every month, my interest goes down, right? So we look down here at the bottom, and at the very end of this, I'm paying basically, $250 a month in interest instead of $424. Okay, that's over a 5-year period. So let's check out over 5 years. That's our period of time. I've borrowed 100,000. Okay, I've paid in 122. My total interest cost over 5 years, 22,361. So that's my interest that I pay total over that 5-year period. If I annualize that, my effective interest rate is 4.12. Okay, 4.12%, right? Now, because I used this as an investment, I'm also going to write it off on my taxes. Okay, you need to work with your CPA on this. It's called a investment expense deduction. You're going to count the interest on the policy loan as an investment expense. Ordinarily, you can't write off policy loan interest on a personal basis. For business transactions, for investment transactions, you certainly can. Okay, so I'm doing this. When I take into consideration the tax deduction, right? I actually, after deducting it on my taxes, I only have 16,467 in interest paid. Okay. My investment expense rate, which is my net effective interest rate after the tax deduction, is about 3.10%. Right? Now we can see my tax rate here is 26%. Right? My tax rate here is 26%. So I'm getting a deduction on 26% of this 22,000. I'm going to pay the other reciprocation of that, which is the 13, or sorry, the 3.10. Okay. So that's my net cost. Let's go back to our whiteboard now. When you reshare the whiteboard, let's check this out. Let's see what happens. Right? So if I have my 100,000 and it's growing at 3 to 5% net, which means I'm going to make about 4,000 for the year in profit over 5 years. Right, let's see what that would be over 5 years. And guys, obviously this is going to compound, so my math is a little rough on this, but 4,000 over 5 years, and it's going to be more than that because you've got compounding going on. But let's say that I'm going to make $20,000 to $30,000 total on my net dividend. Now on my loan rate was net effective rate of 3.10%. Right? Over 5 years, I was going to pay something like 16K. Right? I was going to pay something like 16K. My 16K is a little fugly looking there. Let me make that a little neater for you guys. Right? So if my expense is $16,000, my gain is 20 to 30, I did make a profitable spread there, didn't I? Right? Now the other thing is I invested in real estate, didn't I? So this 100,000 on top of making 20 to 30, it made $1,000 a month times 60 months, right? So $1,000 a month times 60 months, that's another 60K. Right? So I made 60,000 in profit on my investment. I made 20 to 30,000 profit on my actual policy growth, my sacred account growth over that 5-year time period. My net cost of interest was only 16K. Plus, this was tax-free, right? So the 20 to 30,000 tax-free income. Okay, so the 20 to 30 is actually worth more than 20 to 30. You need to make more than that anywhere else if in a taxable environment in order for you to keep 20 to 30,000, right? The 16K deduction offsets the 60. I don't deduct the 16 expense off the 20 to 30. There's no taxes due here. I deduct this 16K expense off of the 60 in profit that I brought in. Right? So I wish I would have known that because this 3.10 is also net. It's been adjusted for the actual return, and it's also been adjusted for taxes. Just like this 3 to 5% has been adjusted for the actual return, and it's also adjusted for taxes. That's tax-free. 3 to 5% tax-free is more like probably 6 to 8% taxable anywhere else. So if I really want to compare apples to apples, it's like I made 6 to 8% taxable equivalent is what that's called, and I have a 3.10% expense. I can net out the taxable equivalent. I can call it 3 to 5 and say, good, I get to keep 4,000 a year, right? And basically, you know, that 2030 total is my profit. I'm not going to pay taxes on it. I'm going to spend 16 and I'm going to make 60 on the real estate. So guys, I really wanted to share that today. I hope that that was helpful. I hope that that was insightful because none of this works if you don't pay your loans back, right? And I get it. Like if you're extended and you're like, man, I was expecting an investment to pay out and it hasn't. I totally understand that. I've been through that before. I'm going through that now with an investment I did a couple years back, right? And I supplement the loan repayment with my income. I am committed to being in the business of banking, right? You would not start a bank, like a physical bank, and collect deposits from people and do a couple of loans and have a few of them go well and then have one loan go bad. And then you're like, I quit. I'm shutting down the entire bank. I'm shutting down the whole business. Imagine if you raised your kids that way, right? You have a couple of kids and they're doing good, they're doing okay, and then one of them starts messing up and you're like, I quit, I'm done, let's kill him, let's get rid of this kid, right? You would never parent that way. You would never run a business that way. Why would you run your banking business that way? You are in the business of banking the moment that you've set up a sacred account. That's all I got for you today. Thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe to the video, and I'll talk to you next time. I want to thank you for watching my video. If you learned something from this, if it was value to you, what I'd like to do is I'd actually like to give you a free copy of my book, Blueprints Financial Freedom. This is perfect for those that are on my channel learning this stuff and you want to take it to the next level. So if you go to the link jerryfetta.com, just my first and last name, jerryfetta.com/B2F promo, or click the link in the description, grab a free copy, we'll send it out to you. Can't wait to get you a copy in your hands.